Hello and welcome to the Affordable Housing Trust meeting for Littleton. It's Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. And so I know that we have a quorum established this evening with Matthew and Angus, Sue, and myself. I believe that that Mark and Bartlett will not be joining us. There is a meeting regarding bodies of water this evening, and they are at that meeting. So, but we are going to be proceeding, and if our other member Kim joins us, that'll make 5. So we're good. So our guest speaker was invited, Rick, with Lipoli. He's the engineering company with Lipoli Companies. And I had asked Marin to inquire if he would be able to attend, but I did not hear anything. So we will not be having a guest speaker this evening, but I will continue to inquire about getting him here. All right. Hello, Kim. Well, she can't hear me yet. So I'm going to move on to item number 3 on our agenda, which is under 3A strategy 1.1 for LRAP. And we heard from Amy DeMichelle that there are no new applicants or updates for this month. So unless anybody has any other comments or questions, we can continue to move on. Hi, Kim. Welcome.
Sorry, all the buttons were turned off today.
I like your earmuffs.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have the 5 of us as a quorum, and Lucia is our staff member this evening.
Great.
Great. So we're already on item B. So Durkee Farmhouse. Perk testing is going to be done this Thursday, August 22nd. And so if you would like to attend,
Right.
please contact Bartlett for further details, because he has been working with the vendor to be able to do that perk testing out there at Durkee Farm. So that's exciting, finally moving forward on that. All right. So then on item C, Heger Homestead, a couple things happened in the last month with this. One is that as the lottery vendor was working with applicants to be able to get the units sold, the 120% AMI unit, there was a calculation that the vendor had been using, but I think we may have discussed it a little bit the last time. And so that all worked itself out because the lottery provider was able to use a different method for their calculation. And so the applicant was able to proceed.
Oh, good.
Yep. And I think the planning board took that on and really determined that we don't need to get into that level of detail, but rather to say we, as the planning board, assign this to you all to work out, and the methodology that you use is something that you just need to make sure you use consistently. Yeah. So then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Was there just one unit at 120?
Talking to me.
You know, that I don't know. I think there may have been more than one unit, but that was for that one particular.
That one there was a question on that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then there was another update regarding Hager Homestead, and that is the lottery was held on August 12th. And so I'm just going to read this to you for the information. And this is per Abby Green, who's a compliance officer for that particular lottery. And she said that there are 4 households entered into the lottery for the 80% AMI unit, and they did not receive any eligible applicants for the 60% AMI unit. So the 60% unit will continue to be marketed on a first come, first served basis, and interested buyers will be income screened by SEB Housing and EOHLC before being sent on to to Diane with Hager. And so
Was that statewide for the 60%?
I'm pretty sure that it was Boston metro area. Yep,
But not Littleton only. Definitely.
correct. Not just
Okay.
Littleton only.
And there were only 4 applicants and none of them qualified. Interesting.
So that was for the 80% unit. Okay, then there were no applicants for the 60%. So it's my understanding what Liz was going to do, it was to make that more well-known through the COA.
Mhm.
And so again, if you talk with any folks out there, 55 plus, because it is a senior residential development who would be interested, please have them go to SEB Housing to look up information and see if perhaps they might qualify if they're interested. Okay. All right. So we have, I believe, 2 guests with us this evening. I just wanted to acknowledge. Mary Ellen and then William Afton.
Hi, everyone. I feel like I should just join the Affordable Housing Trust group at this point. If you need somebody else, I feel like I'm I'm ready to go.
Okay. Well, we're getting ready to talk about that project next.
Thank you.
William, any comments or questions before we keep going? No, okay. All right. So, moving on to Hadouan Road. So as you might recall, there is no example that was provided by Jenny with respect to business terms. And if you recall, her advice was for us to speak our mind. So this time frame that we're in right now is really to try and make sure that we've defined everything that's important to us. And then Jenny can go ahead and put that into the agreement. So I went through again to determine what I felt were some of the things that were important, and I wanted to just kind of take a step back. So one of the things in any sort of contract is really making sure that things that are wanted by us are put into the agreement. And then it's up to the lawyers to put it into legalese and whatnot. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that we just took it as simple as that. Are there particular things that we want to make sure that the agreement between ourselves and Habitat for Humanity we're going to be put into the agreement? Okay. So does anyone have any comments? Because I have a rather lengthy list, and so I'd like for others to be able to go first, and then we can document those and have those go to Jenny.
I don't have anything.
Mary Ellen, this is your turn to shine.
No, I honestly don't. I was just interested to hear. I just wrote down time frame with a question mark, but I know that was part of your original proposal that that there had to be, the project had to be completed within a certain amount of time, meaning like it's not just an endless amount of time, right? Like 5 years and they're still working on it, or I don't know if that's going into it. That was the only thing I had written down.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, you said that you had none?
No, and I believe the time frame was something that we discussed with Jenny, I believe, when she met with us.
And do you recall what the time frame was?
Well, she basically said we could set any sort of time frame that we desired, that we could find a recourse if the house hadn't been built or substantial progress hadn't been made in some time period, like 2 years.
Okay.
It's absolutely something that we could add to the agreement. And I think Carolyn, as I recall, we spoke to her about it as well. And I don't remember whether she said it's standard or it's just something that they have,
Yeah.
have done in the past. But
Okay, so
yeah,
two
I don't
things.
think that's a deal breaker.
No. All right, Sue?
You're muted.
No, I can shake my head. No, I didn't have any.
All right. And Angus, how about you?
Well, I have concerns, but I'm not entirely sure whether it's going to make much of a difference. There's something there in their write-up or the delivery that she gave us that suggested that with Littleton, things could be different because of the terrain of the property. And that was the reason she gave for why Ayer was able to get a little bit more than we're getting. So I'm concerned that this terrain business could be morphed into anything they feel like, or anything, or any kind of problem could be wished away on the terrain of a property, a stumbling block from us getting a fair deal. So could there be more explanation or detail or clarification of what the terrain is for Littleton that's different from Ayer, that's causing us to be hamstrung with a little bit more expense?
So it sounds like what you're saying is that you would like to not confirm a final agreement until after we've seen a site plan? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that may be part of it, but there was something about the terrain of the property making it difficult for them, or making it cost a little bit more for us.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that that comment has to do with whether or not there's ledge. And so I'm trying to find my notes on this. Hang on just a second. I think she said if there's ledge, they won't be able to put in any kind of a basement, but they may be able to put in a shed. And that if there is no ledge, they should be able to add on a basement. Does everybody else remember that correctly?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I think that it really hinges on the ledge component to it, and that it's not supposed to be an issue or a problem, but rather this is the consequence as a result of that being there.
Okay.
What other language would you like to see put in there that could again safeguard us?
Well, I'm not entirely sure. We have ledge, Ayer doesn't have ledge. So what options do we have? I mean, it looks like there's none really. Yeah.
I guess I see this as a sort of a construction contingency that they have to deal with depending on the lot. And I'm sure that there are other lots that they've built on that have other issues, like they can't put a septic in because of the groundwater, or there's a wetlands that encroaches on the basement or something. And I think that we can talk to Carolyn about it, but it's one of those things that it strikes me as being out of their control. If they find ledge and they can't put in a basement, they're not gonna spend a lot of extra money blasting or hammering it away. So like I understand your concern, but it seems like it's something that a contractor, if you were building a house with a contractor, it would be very reasonable for the contractor to say, this is the price of the house, but if we hit ledge, then we're going to have to either cut the basement or you're going to have to spend more money because I can't build a basement where there's ledge.
Okay.
So we could certainly add it as a request for a what did you say, Matthew, a contingency?
Yeah, a contingency. I'm not sure what, I'm not sure what we, I don't recall what the language says now. It sounds like the contingency is almost there already, which is if there's no ledge, we're going to put in a basement. The contingency is if, you know, if we find ledge, we're going to have to not spend the money on blasting in order to stay on budget, and the basement goes away.
Is it too much to ask for them to say if you find ledge or if there's something that changes your design that you have a conversation with us? Or is that too late at that point? Do we have to assume that they're going to make the best choices?
I think that's a part of this contingency that we say if there is a significant change to the plan. I think I remember reading something like that. If there's a significant change to the plan, that they do need to come.
We have a time to review, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, who knows, maybe we can find more money, or maybe someone donates time to do the ledge work or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, let's talk about it before there's a significant change. Absolutely.
Perfect.
And Anna, my only concerns are that, as we spoke about last meeting, was that the one unit especially was universally designed so that if there was level access, level parking, all of that, if that's not going to be built with raised above, then access and interior is designed for wheelchair or, you know, universal design that everybody can actually function well there.
Yes, and that's actually one of the ones that I had as well, is that I just want to make sure that Habitat identifies the ADA components in the proposed design.
So those are two different things, actually. ADA is one thing and universal design is another thing. So it would be curious to see.
So ADA and universal design. And so we were last talking about the ADA and universal design and how we wanted to make sure that those components are in that Habitat identifies ADA and universal design components for us. For example, like the ramp, and you're talking about universal design.
Right. No thresholds, wider doorways. There's several things. Wheeling up to cabinets, wheeling up to having a toilet be the right height, seats being the right height. So,
Terrific.
Thank you.
Yep. Did you have any other?
I was going to say, sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut through.
That's okay.
Good. Oh, so for universal design, we could look through Professor Johnson's presentation to us last summer. And ADA is standard for most things, you know, like the ramps and so on.
How about we send that presentation to Habitat so that they can see what we're.
That would be great. The other thing also is, I mean, I don't know if it's going to add any more cost to it or not, is for Johnson to be sort of like a consultant to them to make sure that these things are put in place. For instance, those types of, there's certain design elements like hidden doors and, you know, things like that, that she does well, can be incorporated in those designs if possible. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I will add those as comments to Jenny Merrill. All right, let's see. I think I asked everybody. So here are some of the ones that I was thinking about. And this first one is actually from Bartlett, to add information that the land reverts back to Littleton if the project isn't completed within a certain amount of time. And so that certain amount of time, I think I heard earlier, was within 2 years. Is that correct?
I just threw that out. That was the number that I vaguely recall talking to Carolyn about, or Jenny, but I don't think we need to necessarily. I think, you know, up to 5 maybe would be okay with me if they have issues with financing or who knows what. I don't think that this lot sitting vacant for a few extra years is going to be a terrible burden. And I want to give them every opportunity. But we can also ask Carolyn what a reasonable time frame is for them.
I think 5 sounds reasonable, obviously. Yeah. Um, it's, I mean, looking at construction going around town, it's hard to see one finished within 2 years in some cases, but I think that 5 is reasonable. Habitat has a very deep well of support, and they should be able to pull from that and be done in 5 years. I mean, 10 years is a stretch, 7 years is a stretch, but 5 years sounds reasonable.
Okay. So some of the other ones include that we want to ensure the home stays affordable in perpetuity. That we want to ensure there's local preference for Littleton residents. And I want to make it clear in the document that Littleton's contribution to the project includes the $200,000 paid for the property, and that any additional cash contribution is in the range of a minimum of 68,000 to a maximum of 100,000, depending on the funds raised by Habitat from other sources. So if it is able to raise money from other sources, then our last money in is no more, or is at least 68,000, but no more than 100,000.
Regarding the affordability, I believe the agreement already states that it's going to be deed restricted.
I think so. Yep.
Yeah.
So it should be good.
So let me ask this. I'm just going to throw it out there. Now, 10 years, 20 years from now, with inflation and everything else that's going on, what's the relative concept of affordability? And how do we peg it down to make sure it remains so? That is probably going to be difficult in my estimation, but I just want to hear what other people think about that.
I believe it's AMI based. I thought it was 40% AMI, so average median income of the area.
Okay.
Right. I think it's actually 60%.
60? Okay, thank you.
60%. Okay.
Yeah. And I have something in here as well regarding if the homeowner needs to move. Okay. That if the homeowner decides to move, Habitat can be one of the monitoring agents and the town is the other monitoring agent. She had mentioned this during the last meeting. The monitoring agents have the right of first refusal, and Habitat will search for another homeowner who earns less than 60% of area median income. So again, we want that in writing. I didn't see that anywhere in the agreement or in their RFP proposal. So I'd like that to be one of the business terms that we have included. Okay.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, that Habitat should not seek additional funding from the Littleton CPC, as that source has already contributed funding for affordable housing to the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust. And a lot of this is taken from the last meeting that we had with Carolyn, that Habitat should not, or I'm sorry, that homeowners have a 1-year warranty. And so I want specifics about what that warranty means so that we have it in writing. That homeowners go to first-time homebuyer class for the year before and the year after moving into the house. That Habitat has financial classes and financial training with the homeowners. So again, putting that in writing. That Habitat starts a local project citizen committee when building in Littleton, and that town people are asked to join and to be a part of the process, and that every homeowner partners with a family advocate from the town to learn about how to own a house in Littleton, where to pay taxes, where to go for the water bill, etc. So something around that. Because again, these are all things that she mentioned during her presentation, but did not have in writing in the proposal, and it's not in the agreement.
Well done.
Let's see. So then in the area that was in our RFP around energy efficiency, that Habitat homes are designed to be fully electric and that they intend to put solar on all of their homes. And so I want them to expand on that section of their proposal to be able to give us more detail about what that really means. And specifically with that, Habitat mentioned that that they would go back and identify all of the cost to minimize surprises. So I think in that specific section, it would be good for them to talk about the efficiency in the building systems with the appliances. And she even mentioned an electric vehicle charger. And then Bartlett mentioned that the house would need ventilation. If it was going to be a really tight house. So I think it's important that we ask that they identify what those costs are going to be and that it's included in the overall budget, that we're all talking from the same page. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The new stretch codes and the all of that lots of that will be covered. That's the good news. The town it'll have to pass that part.
Yep. And I do remember she said that as well, so I'll add that in. Let's see. That a Littleton community member can be part of the family selection board. So I think that would be important. This one, we had a little bit of banter the last meeting we had, and that is whether we want to require that a carport or a garage be built. Given their project in Air, they said that the town of Air required them to build a garage in 4 of the houses that they've built there. So what do you all think? I mean, given what little we know about the site and they built it out, Matthew, you're probably the person who knows the most about, the site itself. Do you think a carport or a garage is important, especially for
I was thinking more for the accessibility aspect. I think either a carport probably or a garage would be important for that unit. They're going to have to hire someone to plow the road, obviously the driveway. I don't think it's going to be practical for them to shovel it. It's going to be too long. And I think if someone is in a wheelchair or a walker or has a hard time with mobility, trying to, deal with the snow drifts that inevitably pile up when someone plows is going to be a real problem. So I think that if we can, I think we should push for, at least a carport for the disabled unit.
Okay. All right, I will add that in. All right. Then this is another one to ask town council about regarding volunteers, to please add a clause that if a volunteer home builder is injured, that they are compensated and or medical bills are paid via Habitat's insurance, not the town's. So I just think it's important to keep us out of that if that happens. And then as part of that time frame that they provide us with an estimated timeline so that we know at least where we should be, and if we can actually achieve that, that would be great. And then I thought we had started this, but I didn't see it. Adding language that Littleton requests the 2 units be placed on the subsidized housing inventory, the SHI. Does anybody remember seeing that in anything? Okay. Yeah. So we definitely want to
It's a good catch.
So those are the business terms that I felt after having gone through it again that needed to be put in writing.
Well done, Anna. Thanks.
So
And I know that is a really good list. I know you mentioned last time, I know you mentioned the landscaping, not that there'd be like additional landscaping, but just the preservation of, any trees that could be preserved, in the interest of their privacy, property, as well as ours would be awesome.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you.
In looking at the what is it called, the LDA, there were just a couple of things. There was something in there under section number 11, use of purchase price to clear title. It talks about a $1,000, not to exceed a $1,000 amount for attorneys, and that's just completely unclear to me. So I wanted to ask Jenny about that.
That means they're working for free, because it's going to take a lot more work than $1,000 worth of attorney work.
Yeah, I really wasn't quite sure what that meant. That's like,
Yeah.
But didn't
Like,
we-
what now? Yeah.
Didn't we take that with eminent domain and clear the title when we took that plot?
I don't know.
I think we did. As I recall, the Brown Woods and all of that land was taken with friendly taking with eminent domain, which completely clears the title.
Yes.
So there may not be a lot for the lawyers to do on that respect. I mean, there may be other stuff they need to do, but.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Matthew. So Mary Ellen, going back to your comment, I did put another note under item 19, and I'm not sure if this is the right place to put it. But a couple of things you just mentioned: preservation of trees. That's really great. Thank you. And then the other one is screening on the property for the abutting neighbor. And I didn't have your address readily available. What number are you on Tehadawon?
We're 79. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, I know, because the numbers are wonky on our road.
Okay.
Well, because 81 is
something I
before
could-
us. Yeah, it's very odd.
Well, I added that in there. So that's in my notes, and I will send that off as well as part of these changes.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
So that's what I was thinking and found for business terms. And I spoke with Mark, and he did not have any, and then Bartlett had the one. So I think we're good. So I think for the next step is I will just draft this up in an email, send it to Jenny, who should be coming back from her vacation, I believe, next week. And then she can get started on that. And she can work with Carolyn or Carolyn's attorney on staff. Any questions on that? No? Okay, great. Well, we are hopefully on our way. All right. So we can move on then to item E, which is the workshop tomorrow. Oh my gosh, that's tomorrow. Kim, what are the plans for tomorrow?
So we're all set. Mark and Dave and I met this morning to finalize and talk about who's going to start, who's going to fill in, what the touch points are. We were very thrilled with nothing was unexpected with the survey that we sent out. It was the numbers and the questions were exactly what we thought we were going to talk about. So that helps us. And mostly we will do a couple of anecdotal stories each and then ask for as many questions as possible. Dave's idea was to give everyone an hour of his time privately, because we know that a lot of people aren't going to want to discuss their particulars in front of a group of people, whether they're at one end of the spectrum or the other. And so I agreed to do the same if they wanted to do something like that. So I think we're in good shape, and we are both coming from it as an educational, here's what you didn't know situation. We're excited. And Anna's bringing cookies.
Actually, given my new job that I just started 2 days ago, I'm not going to be there. I know. So, but I did get 25 yummy cookies from Donnellan's and some bottles of water, and Mark Rambacher now has those, so he will take them to the meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for all the work to make it happen tomorrow. And if for some reason I'm able to sneak away, I will do that.
That's great. And really, we're kind of hoping that this is something that continues. We realize it was a whole year since we did this before. And so we're hoping that that's something that we can offer and have this conversation ongoing, because new people will hear about it after this, and more. We all know that as soon as we go to something like this, then we have more questions. So I hope that we can keep this continuing.
Great. Well, I can't wait to watch it on LCTV.
Kim, how
Yes.
many people are you expecting? How many answered the survey or signed up?
About 20.
Okay.
And so we're not quite sure which ones of those will bring their partners or a friend, or which ones won't show up, but we're guessing something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. It's a nice
No, that's a
number
good
group.
number. That's a good number.
Yeah, yeah. Will you be there?
Yes.
Good. Come sit next to the front so we can help.
So I think it'll be the two of you plus Mark. Matthew can't attend. Angus, you're out of town, right? So you can't attend.
Correct.
So I think it's just going to be the three of you there.
Do any of you have any questions that we should pile onto what we intend to speak about? Or have we talked enough about it that you think that we're going to cover what you might consider important?
I think you're going to cover what we consider important. Absolutely. And you know that people are going to come up with more questions. So,
I hope so.
you just have to sort of roll with it and see what happens.
Dave and I are chatty, but it shouldn't be the Dave and Kim show.
But that's the thing that I think so many people, as we've said all along, don't know what their questions are until
Until
they
we get
start
there.
to hear something, and
That's
then they've got the questions.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm excited.
All right. Well, I'm very excited for you and for the event tomorrow. So I hope it goes really well.
I have one question. Will they set up for us, or should we be there at noon to set up? What's our, or one?
As I recall from the last time we had to set up,
Okay.
so depending on how
Right.
you want the room to be.
Okay, we'll do it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll allot that time. Thank you.
I think
Right.
last time we had like 45,
Yeah, it was a big group.
and so this will be a smaller group, but
Mhm.
you never know.
Right. Right. Great.
All righty. Well, thank you for your work on that.
Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome. I'll report back.
So the next item is the next big discussion point. We shared the budget back in June when we updated the action plan, and it was on page 17 of the action plan that we wound up approving without the budget component to it. And so each of us was supposed to have considered how we want the budget to look for the future funding. And you all have my version based off of that particular page in the action plan. And so now we need to hear yours so that we can come to some agreement about what these numbers look like, what we're proposing for future projects, even though, as we know, we don't quite know what those are. But if we were to say, this is the type of project we want to fund, we can plug some numbers in. So who would like to start?
I'm always impressed that you pull these things together, because it's hard for me to join in and see what's missing until it's too late. So I applaud this.
Ditto.
So thoughts on how to structure our spending for the next 5 years?
Like I say this, I think every time we talk about money, which is I think that the best way for us to spend it is to use it as leverage to get more value out of something else, just like habitat. And so I have a hard time knowing, if another habitat house came up and we spent $100,000 to get 2 affordable units in town, to me, that's a great result. So it's hard to know how to structure spending, given that I don't even know what those projects are, how to go after them. One of the things we talked about briefly was we have 31 Shattuck Street, we have the Durkee Farmhouse. We may have some other town-owned properties that could potentially be affordable. Do we want to spend some money to allocate money for either feasibility studies or potentially even, turning those into affordable housing?
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense to actually pay for feasibility studies because, for example, with Turkey Farm, that's what we'll probably wind up having to do next once we get the perk testing done.
So maybe we should do one feasibility study a year, for example, and budget for that. Because I suspect, although I don't know, and then there's the Orchard House,
I think we had determined that last December when we voted that we would not be doing anything else with antique homes, and
Oh,
that
that's true.
falls
Yeah,
under
that's
that.
true. That's a
Yep.
good call.
Yeah.
But 31 Shattuck is a good one.
And technically speaking, because that's 100 years old,
Yeah.
it is technically an antique as well at this point. But
Yeah.
if that's something that this board wishes to sidestep, we can certainly do that. Yep.
I
And
think, you know what, there's a good way to note that, right? If the foundation is sure, if the electrical has been upgraded, if the insulation has been upgraded, if the windows aren't leaded. I mean, there's antique houses that have all antique things, and then there are old houses that have been upgraded to 30 or 40 years old that maybe we don't blanket it, is my point to that.
yes, and again,
No age discrimination.
right. To the other role that Matthew has in terms of the select board, right? It's going to be under the purview of the select board for homes like 31 Shattuck Street as to whether or not they want to put that back out on the market as at full market rate or not. But I know that we did at least consider that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting conversation with someone at Pondside the other day. We were picking up some furniture and they told me that their rent, and it was astronomical for a 3-bedroom, 3,400 or something like that a month, which is more than my mortgage for my whole house.
Rents are horrific.
Yeah, it makes me want to push hard for any time that we can create an affordable house, deed restricted affordability, we should do it, because this was a young family with kids and they had no option except to spend more than half, I'm sure, their take home on rent. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Maybe that's our next seminar for young renters.
Maybe there's something about why, is there anything we can do to get to the root of the cause of the expensive rents? Because I hear a lot of things about why, but I don't know that any of it is real.
And some people really want to rent, and that's okay. Because that's their cost. They don't have to think about anything else, any maintenance, any landscape. So they understand, even though the rent is likely to go up, that's a more feasible thing for them for whatever reason. Others just are in the cycle that they've spent so much, now they can't save the money to be able to put that payment down. And so that's who I'd love to help.
Well, so you all have brought up a really good point about Matthew. You just mentioned, even if we can provide one house at a time to folks. So that's really part of where some of the bigger projects come into play. So as an example, in other towns like Shirley, when there were a lot of partners that were able to come together, and I think they have what, like a 45 unit affordable development over in Shirley. And so being able to work that angle for something that's larger, again, going back to that inventory of town property that I've been asking for and that Matthew's been asking for, to identify, is there a larger parcel of land in Littleton where we could do something like that? Because that is a different play as opposed to the one-off here, the one-off there.
And one thing to think about is that people who rent a single family home are more likely to succeed and be able to acclimate into the community. Whereas if we have rentals or condos that then get bought up and rented, it creates a different thing. Take a look at those condos in Boxborough. There's hundreds of them. And what happens is they're owned by about 25 people. Hundreds of units are owned by about 25 people. And so they're the ones who are perpetuating rentals for lots and lots of people because they're off the market now forever. And so that is what I don't know how to control that. And maybe this is something that we can talk about, is if we do set up something in a multi situation, it's less likely that one person or one entity that we don't identify as one person buys many of them and then becomes a landlord anyway, because we have a lot of rentals coming. Remember those rentals? We have a lot of those.
Is the project in Shirley like a public-private partnership?
It is, yes.
And did they find not-for-profit builders or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can use our funds to kickstart something like that, I agree. Like building 50 units is way better than building one or two.
Yeah. So that particular one, just trying to find it real quick. I know that our Senator Jamie Eldridge was involved with it, and it all came together, probably took about 6 years to be able to do the whole thing, but it has been open for a couple of years. And site. Shirley
Not a
Meadow.
bad idea to talk to some of the builders in town to see. I mean, we could look and see who owns what land.
Well, I think the bottom line to it is that if the town actually has a piece of property that
Right.
it is willing to donate for this particular type of project that's bigger, then that's the way to go. I think, for my opinion, over the last 8 years that I've been in town and part of the planning board, our local builders just really don't have the interest and have not had the wherewithal to actually create the number of low income units that we need. Yeah, it's just not in their DNA, and that's okay.
Right.
Yeah. So this is called Shirley Meadows. It is a quote #2 life community designed for households age 62 and older in Devens. Shirley Meadows includes 58 apartments of supportive and affordable housing, of which there are 55 one-bedrooms and 3 two-bedroom units. This community is designed to address the immediate needs of older adults with incomes ranging from moderate 60% median income to extremely low at 30% area median income. And so a lot of organizations came together to create this, but this is the kind of project that I'm thinking about, that if we were to able to procure a larger parcel of property, and again, it doesn't have to be that huge. I have the data about how many acres it took, and it wasn't that many, but then we can do something a little bit bigger, and our investment doesn't necessarily have to be outrageously huge. I mean, obviously, it would probably entail quite a bit of the dollars that we have. But so that's kind of my 2 cents.
And also because it takes so long, we have time to get more dollars.
Mhm,
We don't have to come up with it all at the same time, right?
right. So that goes back to the whole question that FinCom had asked a year ago, and that was, what are you guys doing with all that money? You know? And so if we can say, this is the project that we're working toward, hey, FinCom, and everybody else in town who might have questions, this is what we're going to be spending our project money on, and we have to save up in order to do a project that size, right? The other one that I really like, and I have visited this one, it's called the Carlisle Benfield Farms. Has anybody heard of it?
Not me.
So it's in Carlisle, and it was, let's see, it is 26 units. They did 5 units at 30% AMI, 17 at 60% AMI, and 4 at 100% AMI. It is also seniors, and out of I'm trying to do the math on this real quick. Out of a $425,000 development, or excuse me, contribution to a $9.9 million development. So that was like a 4% contribution from the town of Carlisle. Okay. So that's a really small amount, 425,000 out of a $9.9 million project. Now, granted, that was like 8 years ago. But my point is that that's the kind of money that we could contribute. Right. So that's the larger project type that I mentioned in the numbers that I put together to say, well, if we ever did want to do a large size project, maybe by the year 26, 27, which is 2 years down the road, maybe we would have something identified and we'd have to contribute a large sum of money. So that's where that big number in the table for 26, 27 of $750,000 comes into play. You know, that says if we were to have a big project. And then again, we could have smaller projects like we're doing now on Tehadawon. Jerky may be it might be a medium-sized project. But we can decide how much we want to pay for it. I mean, to me, I kind of look at this as, well, I've got the next 5 years coming up, and I've got my budget, and I want to go on vacation. Well, where do I want to go? Right. Well, I think I'm going to want to go to someplace really close multiple times. So that's my small project. And then I'm going to want to go on a 30-day cruise down to South America or something, right? That's my really big one. So same kind of thing for us. What do we want to do? Because we do need to put something down. And we can change our mind. But I think it's just important to be able to have something that we can talk to, speak about.
So I think that we're already doing some of the things that we're supposed to do, really. We're doing the mini projects, the Durkee, the Tehadawon, and we could put in an aspirational project, perhaps plan for maybe a 25 unit if there's land available. And we want to be saving up towards that so that when we find a developer, it's not a scramble to start putting money together. I'm not sure if, because all these things are there. We just need to be able to have the funds available to make a down payment for a big project. So perhaps that's something that we could document, that it's an aspirational. We don't have to say that, just put it in, that's it's a goal that we're heading towards. So perhaps that might be something.
What do others think about Angus's idea?
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
that-
And presenting it at town, imagine presenting that when we haven't gotten through King Street and the others. So we have to be thoughtful about how we present that and what the benefit would be to the people who we can't get served there. I think that's going to be an important issue.
Can't get served there being at 550 or at
Mhm.
any, okay.
Or the mill, right? I mean,
Yeah.
every time I talk about affordable housing or any housing, right. So if we are introducing new ideas, we have to think there are people who won't be served because of these 3 reasons. And that's why we're continuing to look for projects beyond the 10-year project that we already have here. And I think that's prudent. I think it's wise to consider that.
I think one of the things that FinCom is concerned about was us having a big piggy bank and basically not using the money. And I think what Angus just described is very much like a reserve fund, like a reserve fund or a what do they call it? Sorry, I'm blanking on the term.
Like a
Impressed.
preparedness, right?
Yeah, like yeah. So like something that we contribute to every year, a stabilization fund,
Mm-hmm.
so that if we do end up with needing to put $150,000 or $250,000 into a development as seed money, we don't hit the CPC so hard that year. And so this might not be the right time to discuss it if we're going to finalize the budget. But it strikes me that having that approach seems prudent.
Agreed.
I think that FinCom would say, well, you need to identify a target. Like their stabilization funds have very specific things that they can be spent on. You're just asking for like us to put aside money for some blue sky project that may or may not come down the pike.
Can we?
So
I'm sorry, Matthew. Can we get a list of the town-owned properties that, right? That
Someday.
we can target, right? And say, well, there are 37
Yeah.
town-owned properties bigger than this, and it occurs to us that should they ever need to be sold for any reason, we have identified a use for them.
So Matthew, as a select board member, you know that you've tried to get this list, and we were able to get the list back in June, and Mark and I had a discussion with Town Administrator Duggan about it. And so he was then going to talk to the assessor's office about some of the properties on the list. Is it appropriate for us to ask Mr. Duggan to be our guest speaker so that we can inquire more about some of these properties?
So I think that he would say, yeah, he'd love to, but I think he would say, I don't know anything about him. We need to talk to, probably either have Kathy, the assessor, and or Maren, to discuss these plots so that because Jim won't have the information about what we can and can't do with them. Kathy will know why we own them and what they're worth, and Maren will know whether or not they're A&R or they have frontage and, all the things about how we can develop them.
Should we put that for an agenda for 2 months from now?
Okay. So in October.
Yeah, and I think it probably would be wise to make sure that all the parties have that list ahead of time. And, I think we'll probably only want to discuss things over an acre or two or something like that. So there may only be a handful of them that we
Right.
can look at. But
It's public record. I can pull them,
yeah,
but I don't know the things that Kathy will know about them.
right.
hmm So having her will be
Yeah.
also prudent.
So from a timing standpoint, what has typically been a roadblock to making progress on something like this is the twice a year town meeting, and staff gets really
Bogged.
bogged. Yes. So is a November a better time for someone like Kathy to be brought in?
From a town meeting standpoint, it would be since town meeting happens on the 1st or something of November or no, it's like early October. So that might be better, but I don't know whether she has other financial responsibilities, year ends and so forth. But look, that, she's an employee of the town, and this is one of the things that we can ask her to do. I think it's totally appropriate for us to ask her to participate in this discussion. And especially with 2 months of warning, it seems like a reasonable ask. And if we give her the information beforehand and we qualify what we need to be talking about, that seems reasonable as well.
When you received that list before, did you see a visual of it or was it a list?
It was just
Isn't
a data list.
So
Yeah, it was
can we
just
get a
data
map?
list, and then
Because when I pull it, it's going to say 0 to Hadawan.
Yeah.
It's not going to have a number 90% of the time, which so it's not identified on any map unless they have it. So that would be helpful for us to bring it to them and discuss. Okay, so we see these 5 lots all scattered around, and we've highlighted the ones we'd love to consider, and we could give her that ahead of time. And that would certainly be a lot more helpful for all of us to realize how many chinky little pieces of land that there are by the lake that are never going to be useful to anybody other than a neighbor.
I can speak to Jim and begin the process of trying to find a way to get that information in a parsable form for us.
yeah, I think I think we have it actually. I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so let me just kind of walk through what I heard that folks would like to do, and Sue, Angus, any comments before I do that, kind of summarize?
No, I just have one other little thing. We've talked about the big projects and everything, but we recently went up on the amounts that we dispersed to the LRAP people. I just want to make sure that it's probably already done, but I just want to assure that this is put in a rolling amount over the next 5 years in our budget so that it's identified and there.
Yes. So there is a line in the proposed budget that I provided to everybody in June, and it's grant for LRAP, that every year for the next 5 years, we would make an ask at town meeting for CPC dollars of $90,000.
Exactly.
That means that amount doesn't increase. But that would be our annual ask, and then we could still make other requests of CPC between now and then.
And I'm sorry that I don't know the answer to this. It's not just guaranteed that we get that, even if we ask for it every year, correct?
Right, because
Right.
CPC has to say yes, and then
Right.
our town voters.
And it has to be there, right? Okay.
Well, and then the other thing is that some years when we may not make the 15 number that gives us a 90,000, but our ask still has to be 90,000.
I think what we said is that, as an example, if we only spend 70,000 this year, next year, because we would still have 20 for this particular item, that we can only ask for 70.
70.
Yeah, exactly. So Sue, how about you? Any thoughts on what we've been discussing?
Nothing new to add. No, I agree with everybody that a big project would be a good thing to start saving for.
Okay.
Identifying the big project is another story.
Yes. So what I heard is that we can explore this idea of an aspirational project,
Mhm.
and that in order to do that, we need to see a map and a list of the town-owned properties so that we can in advance determine which ones we would be interested in exploring, right? And then, once we've done that, we can provide a short list that we have questions about and invite Assessor Kathy to come in either in October, November timeframe to discuss more detail about what those properties could potentially entail, and Maren could perhaps contribute to what she knows about the property as well. Is that what we just said? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. And then for FinCom, at some point, bless you, we do want to get back to FinCom. So would you see getting back to FinCom by the end of the year?
Yeah, the more, I think if we can define it, the better we can define it. Yes, we can absolutely speak to them after town meeting. I think that's appropriate. And the budget cycle will begin then too. So that's a good time to talk to them about it.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thanks everybody for contributing to that discussion. All right, if nothing else on that topic, then let's move on to the next one, which is also related to CPC. Lucia sent out an email to everybody last week on the 14th, and it was an email from me that basically is an email to go to CPC saying, per our joint agreement, this is how much money was spent last year, and it's basically a report to CPC. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that?
I'm just thrilled you're on this board.
I've got one more year. And so if there are no comments or questions, could I get a motion to approve this to send to CPC?
So moved.
Second,
All right, so Angus and Sue, thank you. Let's see, all in favor, Matthew,
Aye.
Kim,
Yes, aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Sue.
aye.
Anna's an aye, so thank you. I'll go ahead and forward that on to Chair Mueller for CPC. Right. I'll just have to do that once a year. And then I will also follow up with Michelle again in finance to see if those dollars have been moved over from the CPC account to the Affordable Housing Trust account. Let's see. Okay, so item C, the newsletter. Sue, again, thank you so much for having written up our newsletter item the last 2 months. So I would propose that we do something every other month as a contribution to the newsletter. And since we skipped the August submission, that means we need something written up to submit in September for the October publication. So since there are 12 months, 6 of us left since Sue's already done 2, each of us gets to do one over the course of the next year. So who would like to write the one for September?
I'll try.
Okay,
I'll try it.
okay. So
I may need help. Mhm.
well, we have an expert, right, Sue? She can guide.
I was just going to say, I'll help you if you need help. No, I'll help. I'll help Kim.
All right. And then let's just go ahead and kind of finish it up. Who would like to volunteer for November?
I'll do it.
Angus for November. And then January 2025.
Wait a minute, Mark and Bartlett are escaping.
Yeah.
They're going to escape. I'm giving you all the opportunity to pick first.
I'll do
So-
January.
Oh, they
Okay,
love
Matthew
that.
will take January. And then, let's see, we'll give March, May, and July. Those are all busy months. So, I will take March, and then we'll give Bartlett May and Mark July. All right. So there
Mark won that game.
we go. Well, he's going to have some work to do with Tehadawon, so.
That's true. That's true.
All right. Great. Well, thank you. And yeah, Kim, I'm happy to help as well for this next one, and then Angus. Great.
Yeah, I'm willing to help anybody that.
Thank you. So now we're on to item E, our trustee updates. Any updates relevant for us? From anybody? Nope. Okay. All right, seeing none, let's keep moving. We are on item F, and so the July 23rd minutes, any comments or questions?
Looked accurate and correct to me.
Me
Mhm.
too.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from the August meeting?
No. Is it August?
Sorry,
No,
July meeting.
July
July.
23rd?
I'll second that. I'll second the motion to approve the July minutes.
Kim and Matthew, thank you. All right, so all those in favor, Sue,
Yes.
Angus,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
and Matthew?
Yes.
And Anna's a yes. All right, so we got those approved. All right, so under G, we're supposed to identify the guest speaker for the next time around, which is our September meeting. And so I would like to say that at the Thursday, September 12th meeting, the planning board, I believe, is supposed to have folks in from Lapoli Company to provide an update. So if you all are interested in
Mhm.
sending in or attending that meeting, please feel free. But I will keep asking for Rick, but if anybody has somebody else that you'd rather have brought in as a guest speaker, please let me know. Okay. All right, so our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 17th at 6:30 p.m. Is anyone not able to attend that day and time?
Good.
Okay. All right, so I think that is our next meeting, and unless anybody has anything else, we can adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.